Christopher Bell and Toyota get it done by getting the win at Phoenix. Drivers we expected to be up front today had awful days, and unfortunately we have to address the new short track package. Let's talk about NASCAR in Phoenix, Arizona. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR in the Cactus State where Christopher Bell is able to get the win. We'll talk about my top 3 driver picks of the day. We'll go through the top 10 today. We'll go through some finishing results that are sort of surprising, some drivers we thought would run better that did not have good results, and then of course I'll round out the show by discussing and breaking down NASCAR's new 2024 package for short tracks that debuted today in Phoenix. So we'll obviously talk about all that, and let's go ahead and get into it. We have Christopher Bell getting his 7th career win today, his first win at Phoenix, Arizona, and what a day it was for Christopher Bell. Was able to pull off and absolutely dominate this race, especially in the later stages, win by a near 6 seconds. Truex led it late in the race, but Truex, we ultimately knew he was going to have to make a pit stop and really didn't have much of a shot to make it to the win or to victory lane unless a caution came out in his favor, which that never did. We went a very long ways on the green flag run. Christopher Bell was really fast all day. He kept having problems on pit road, had trouble on pit road, kept falling back. Certain things would push him back through the field, but he was definitely the fastest car of the day because he was one of the few cars that was able to maneuver very well through the field, was able to maneuver through traffic very efficiently, and ultimately he was able to win by a near 6 seconds. So a big day for Christopher Bell and that 20 team. And just to talk about Christopher Bell for a minute before we get into some of the other finishing results is Christopher Bell, I like his post-race interview. I like his demeanor. It's sort of different than what we've seen. I could say like William Byron. I can relate him to like Jimmy Johnson in a way, his attitude. I really can't relate Christopher Bell to somebody because he's kind of like feisty, but at the same time, he's very calm, and he lets Clint Boyer said it best in the Fox booth. He lets his actions on the track do the talking for him. He doesn't have a whole lot to say except, he wants to do better, and that's why Christopher Bell could be very dangerous moving forward. He already has a win this year in the first 4 races, the 4th race of the season. He has a victory. In his post-race interview, he says he wants to be able to do this and win big and win, very consistently throughout the rest of this season. And we could see that from Christopher Bell. I also want to point out that this is the 4th year in a row that Christopher Bell has won at least one race. So 2021, when he won that race at Daytona Road Course, he's won a race every season since 2021, which is not every driver is doing that. So certainly want to point that out as well. So Christopher Bell locked in the playoffs now. I'll talk about my top 3 drivers of the day, my big picks for the day of the top cars, top drivers of the race. And first off, once again, Christopher Bell, like I said, the winner of the race, already talked about him, definitely going to be on that list as the fastest car. But Ty Gibbs was very impressive today. Unfortunately for him, finished in the 3rd position. He was up front, had a massive issue on pit road, took a long time to get the wheel off. It was hard for him to recover from that. Ultimately, he was able to get back up to 3rd. I don't think he was faster than Christopher Bell was, just considering how well Christopher Bell was able to maneuver through traffic compared to everybody else. But if there was a 2nd place car, it was definitely Ty Gibbs. Gibbs led the early stages of the race, was able to get some stage points all day long, so a solid points day for Ty Gibbs. 3rd place, got stage points in stage 1 and 2, or stage 1 at least. I think he might have missed out on points in stage 2 because of the pit road incident, but a solid day overall by Ty Gibbs, and he showed his strengths. And I think you're going to see that moving forward. You remember last year, Bristol in the night race, Ty Gibbs led. Ty Gibbs is going to be a threat this season, this NASCAR season. Sophomore slump, I talked about it in the preseason video. I don't think you're going to see that. We saw it out of Austin Cindric. We saw it out of Chase Elliott years ago. We've seen it out of multiple drivers just because it's very common in NASCAR for multiple reasons. But I don't think you're going to see it out of Ty Gibbs. I think Ty Gibbs is going to continue to get better, and it won't be long. I'll be making a video about his first career win. I really do think that's coming. My 3rd car of the day is going to be Denny Hamlin. Led a bunch of laps. Wasn't as fast as those top 2 cars that are on my list, but he unfortunately spun. You can take a look at it here. He was in 2nd place, battling for the lead on a restart. Lost control of the car, spun, didn't hit anything, didn't hit the inside wall, but man, track position was so key today. It was hard to pass. Track position is key more now than ever in NASCAR, especially at tracks like Phoenix, so just wasn't able to get back up front, ended up finishing in 11th position. That was, I think, around 100 laps ago, 90-something laps ago when the spin did happen. So just didn't have quite enough time to get all the way back up through the field. So unfortunately for Denny Hamlin, that just takes so many options away from you strategy-wise, being aggressive. It just puts you in 11th place. So I'd say that's a pretty disappointing day for Denny Hamlin, who definitely looked to be one of the fastest cars. Notice all 3 drivers that I have on my big 3 driver list are Toyota drivers today. So the Toyotas were really fast all day, really, except for Bubba Wallace. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and see what happened to him. Let's take a look at the entire top 10. Once again, Christopher Bell, solid run for Chris Buescher in the RFK Ford. You remember remember last week in Las Vegas, it was a really bad week. I think had a tire fall off the car. That's a big penalty. And then, of course, once again, last week had a tire fall off. That's a big penalty. Finishes last, got no stage points. Bad week last week in Vegas, only the third race of the season. Hasn't been the fastest start to the year for those RFK Fords, but a very solid day today out of those guys because you had Brad Keselowski finishing in the 4th position as well. And those two drivers always run together. If one of them has a good day, the other one has a good day. There's not a lot of separation. There's very rarely do we see, like at 23-11 sometimes, or at other teams, do we see those two drivers, one of them top 5, the other one 15th. If one of them's 15th, the other one's 16th or 17th. That happens a lot. If you go back to last year, a lot of times they finished 1-2. But I think, once again, Chris Buescher, 3-time winner last year. That's a solid season. I think Chris Buescher, once again, he's won at Bristol too in 2022. We go there next week. Chris Buescher, solid run today, very solid one. Brad Keselowski, over 100 race winless streak now, also trying to break that winless streak. We have a lot of storylines building, right? I mean, we have Chris Buescher trying to continue to win for RFK, Ty Gibbs in 3rd, I mentioned him, trying to get his first career win. Of many is what we're kind of expecting out of him. And then you have Brad Keselowski is trying to break a long winless streak. It's been over 100 races. You have Ryan Blaney, another solid day. Ryan Blaney always puts together finishes. This is why he's your defending champion. This is why he could win another championship because points matter all season long. And Ryan Blaney probably wasn't a top 10 car all day, but he was able to use strategy. Once again, Dirty Air played a huge role today, was able to finish in the top 5. Very solid run for Ryan Blaney in the 12 car. Ross Chastain was being aggressive all day long, was able to move his way back up through the field, finish in the 6th position. Martin Truex Jr., a solid 7th place finish. Once again, Martin was trying to do this little strategy move where he didn't pit with everybody else, but unfortunately he had to pit under green flag, get fresh 4 tires, so he was able to come back up, finish in the 7th position. Solid run for Martin Truex Jr. It was worth taking the risk because if he didn't take that risk, he probably would have finished top 5 maybe, but around 6th or 7th. He was trying to go for the win. For Michael McDowell, the 34 team, they've been fast all season long. This front row team, Todd Gilliland was fast today as well, but Michael McDowell's been really solid all year long, was fast in qualifying at Daytona. Just had some things go wrong, not go their way. So I'm expecting this 34 team, I'm not going to say I'm expecting them to win races or multiple races. I totally would not be surprised if they did. But I'm expecting them to make the playoffs. I'm expecting them to contend for wins and be competitive all season, which is completely opposite of what I would have said about Front Row Motorsports, that 34 team 4 years ago, right? So certainly interesting. Chase Briscoe, solid run, winner here in 2022 in this race, finishes 9th in a SHR Ford. And then, of course, you have Tyler Reddick, another one of those Toyotas who was very fast early on in the race and then just got caught up in strategy. It was hard to pass, finishes in the 10th position. Once again, I mentioned Denny Hamlin finishing the 11th position as well, who was fast all day too. So let's go through some drivers that had disappointing results. I'll go through the HMS drivers first. Hendrick Motorsports did not have a good day. Kyle Larson was 14th, 15th, or 16th every time I looked at the scoring pylon. That is the driver that was leading late last year, that looked really strong last year at this racetrack, had a shot to win a year ago, was your defending winner for this week, won last week in Las Vegas. I was expecting a big show from Kyle Larson. In fact, going into this week, I thought he would be the winner of the race again. 14th place, and he was not a top 10 car at all this weekend. So very disappointing. Same thing with William Byron. Where was William Byron at? I know he was running in the top 10 at times, but he just didn't show the speed I was expecting. I was expecting this to be more similar to last year's Phoenix race where it was Larson and Byron show, Hendrick Motorsports show. Not at all. William Byron 18th, 19th, Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's had some disappointing results this year. Elliott was fast. He was in the top 5, 7th for a while, and then just couldn't play the strategy right. And then Alex Bowman, I didn't see him in the top 10 at all when I was looking at the scoring pylon. So really disappointing day for HMS. I mean, the pit crew guys, the crew chiefs on top of the pit box, they're supposed to know what to do to get the best results for their driver. I know sometimes it's unfortunate, but to see all those HMS drivers outside the top, most of them outside the top 15, the highest one finishing 14th, I'm surprised and I'm disappointed. And I am surprised to see all of those drivers not have good results considering how good they were in Daytona, won Daytona 500, finished 1-2, worked well together in that race. And you go back to Las Vegas last week, did great there. Just surprised to see them to have an off week. We'll see how they can carry that over into Bristol moving forward. We have another couple of guys that had really bad days. Joey Logano was unfortunately outside the top. It went a lap down, was in 20th something place most of the day, outside the top 15, outside the top 20. Ended up getting caught up in a wreck here. You see John Hunter Nemechek gets in the back of him. Logano comes back up into the track, gets hit, takes him out of the race. Once again, Joey Logano does not finish a race. He was the fastest car in Daytona, essentially, really fast in Atlanta, wrecked, didn't finish either of those races. And then 3 out of the 4 races, Logano has not made it to the checkered flag. That's that's concerning for the 22 team. That can take weeks or months to recover from in the point standings. So we have to continue to watch that as well for Joey Logano, the 22 team, who was not fast at all today. I do want to point that out. This was a really bad showing for that team all day long. Kyle Busch was also really slow, unloaded off the truck slow in practice. Qualifying was absolutely awful. Qualified 31st or 32nd. It was outside the top 30 and run outside the top 30 for a majority of the day. Made some adjustments. Finished 22nd. Very disappointing for Kyle Busch. You see he spun as well. By himself, essentially. So really bad weekend for Kyle Busch. We'll have to see. They got to fix something on these shorter ovals because it's bad. We'll see how Logano and Busch do moving into Bristol next weekend. I do want to address the short track package because this was the debut of a new 2024 NASCAR short track package. We know that the short tracks have been a little more lackluster than the mile and a halves than the super speedways the last few seasons since the debut of this next gen car in 2022. And I'll just say this, it's gotten way better than it was in 2022, that's for sure. But I do think if I look at last year's race at Phoenix, I think that was better than what we had today. And that's probably from the teams gaining, learning information. But it's really unfortunate because you look at the first 2 years of this car, and we were kind of promised by drivers, teams, manufacturers that the car will get better on these style of racetracks. Road courses have certainly gotten better, and short tracks haven't gotten much worse, but it was so bad to begin with. It is unfortunate because this is now the third season. I understand you can't change things in the first season. I understand it's hard to change things drastically within a 2-season period. But when you go into a third season, it's just very frustrating from a fan's perspective, and it's very frustrating from a driver's perspective as well. You heard Denny Hamlin made some comments on it that it's just not fixing the problem, and all the drivers are pointing to the same thing, and that's horsepower. I'm not going to go in here and just beat a dead horse by talking about how they need to raise horsepower. I just think it needs to be addressed that you're going to have to do something about the short track package. Because if I look at the upcoming schedule, what do we have next week? Bristol. We have Martinsville coming up after that. We Circuit of the Americas to break this up, luckily, which should be a decent race. And then you have Richmond, Martinsville back-to-back, Texas. That's a long line of races where to start out the season, if the racing is going to be like it was today, today was a little lackluster. Today was not the most exciting. I was not on the edge of my seat today like I was for the first 3 races of the season. And I'm not saying every race you're going to be on the edge of your seat. That's fine. But it doesn't make sense that Chase Elliott and William Byron run top 10 all day. You get put in traffic and can't pass a single car for 100 laps. That is so frustrating to watch. It was really bad at Martinsville last year in the spring because I could see it. I was there. You can just see that there's no passing, and it was so frustrating. But it's a little better, I'll say. I like Denny Hamlin's comments. It's like 10% better, but it's still awful to say the least. It's not good racing. I think Christopher Bell was the fastest car today for sure. So I'll give him credit, and I don't want to discredit what these drivers are doing. It's still very difficult to do this, and Christopher Bell obviously deserved the win today. But I just think it needs to be addressed, and I think that NASCAR should really look into trying to fix the issue. And once again, everything I say comes from a fan's perspective, so it's really hard to watch it. But we'll see what happens moving forward into Bristol. Bristol will not use this package, so we'll keep that in mind. This will not be the package we'll use at Bristol. But I'm really not, I'm not as excited going into Bristol as I usually would be because I know Bristol's a great track. I know the trucks are going to perform very well next weekend. When the Cup Series rolls out, I really don't know how it's going to be at Bristol next week. So anyway, that's about all there is to talk about following NASCAR at Phoenix. Of course, like and subscribe if you like the video. Tune in, share the video. I do appreciate it if you do. And of course, next week we do go to Bristol, baby. The half mile, the banked half mile, the last great Coliseum. I'll do a race review following that next Sunday. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the weather does well there. We know the spring races had trouble with that in the past. But that's it. That's all there is to talk about Kyle Busch finishing 22nd today and spinning. Let's get rowdy.